left me.
He's asking for you.
Tell him I died the day he left me, that I don't care if he dies too.
Her phone rings. She looks at the screen. She freezes. She lets it ring and ring and ring. Then slowly she picks up. Says nothing. Voice on the other end, quiet. He's asking for you. Long pause. She closes her eyes. Rachel, barely audible. Tell him I died the day he left me. She hangs up, sets the phone face down, sits perfectly still, like someone who has rehearsed this moment 100 times and still wasn't ready for it. But before you understand that phone call, you need to understand who Rachel is and everything she survived to get to this moment. Rachel's story doesn't start with heartbreak. It starts before she was old enough to understand what heartbreak even was. She was born, and her father looked at her and decided she wasn't what he wanted. Not because something was wrong with her, not because of anything she did, but because she was a girl child. That was the only reason. She was a girl child, and in her father's world, that was enough of a reason to walk away. He had 2 sons from his life, 2 boys he claimed, 2 boys he showed up for. But Rachel was the daughter he pretended didn't exist. Her mother couldn't carry it. The rejection, the loneliness, the weight of raising a child alone while the man who was supposed to be her partner had already checked out. So when Rachel was just 3 months old, her mother left. No letter, no explanation. She placed her baby in grandma's arms and disappeared. And so it was grandma. Always grandma. She was the one who stayed up through the fever nights, the one who braided Rachel's hair and packed her lunch and showed up to every single thing that mattered. The one who said over and over, as if she knew Rachel needed to hear it every day. Grandma, soft, certain. You are not what they left behind. You are what God kept. Rachel held on to those words because when you grow up with that kind of silence where a parent should be, you cling to whatever love you can find. The years passed. Rachel grew. She learned to be strong because she had no other choice. She learned to need less because needing too much only led to disappointment. And then, one day, she got word that her mother was sick. The first time Rachel ever laid eyes on the woman who gave birth to her was lying in a hospital bed. Thin, quiet, eyes full of a guilt she had never found the words to say out loud. They sat together. Her mother held her hand and didn't let go. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't have the language for it yet. And they didn't have enough time. Beat. Her mother died the following year. Rachel never got to sit with her properly, never got to ask the questions she had been carrying, never got to hear her mother say, "I'm sorry, I should have stayed. You deserved better." She folded that grief up quietly and placed it alongside everything else she wasn't allowed to fall apart over. And her father? She had never met him. Not once. Not a phone call. Not a birthday message. Not a single sign that he even remembered she existed. But Rachel, despite all of it, still believed in love. She believed that somewhere ahead of her was a life that would finally feel like home. A person who would choose her, stay with her, see her. She believed that the love she never received as a child was waiting for her somewhere. She was about to find out how much that belief would cost her. She was rejected at birth, abandoned at 3 months old. She never knew her mother's voice until it was almost too late, and she had never once looked her father in the eyes. But she still believed love would find her. So when a man came along and promised to stay, do you think he kept that promise? Or do you think Rachel's story was just getting started?
His name was Daniel, and from the very beginning, he felt different. He was warm, present. He looked at Rachel like she was someone worth knowing. And for a woman who had spent her whole life being treated like an inconvenience, that feeling was everything. When he asked her to marry him, she said yes, not out of desperation, but out of hope. The kind of hope that builds up quietly in a person who has been waiting a very long time to be chosen. But before the wedding, Rachel did something that took every ounce of courage she had. She reached out to her father. She contacted his siblings. She sent word through every channel she could find. And finally, the message got through. She just needed one thing from him. One thing she had never asked for before. Rachel, voice trembling, "Dad, I'm getting married. I just need your blessing." He didn't call her. He didn't come. He didn't even send a message directly. Instead, he sent his brother. "Uncle, quiet. He says he is sorry. He won't be present, but I will stand in his place as your father." Rachel stood there and processed what that meant. Her father, a man with 2 sons, a life, a family, couldn't even face her on her wedding day. Sent a substitute, like she was a problem to be managed, not a daughter to be celebrated. The uncle walked her down. The wedding happened, and Rachel smiled, the way women smile when they are determined not to let their pain ruin something beautiful. The early years of the marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. She gave everything she had because she had decided this marriage was going to be different. This was going to be the love that lasted, the one that stayed. She was going to change the narrative. Then, the finances collapsed, and everything changed. Daniel's mother moved in. Then the extended family followed. Opinions filled the house like smoke, slowly, quietly, until Rachel could barely breathe. And Daniel, the man who had promised to choose her, started choosing them instead. He stopped defending her. He started repeating their words back to her as if they were his own. He called her names. He reminded her again and again of where she came from. "Daniel, cold. You were abandoned. What do you even know about family?" The man she married was using her wounds as weapons. Rachel kept going. She cooked more. She spoke less. She shrunk herself down to a size she thought might be easier to love. It didn't work. And then, in the middle of all of it, her son got sick. She took him to the hospital. She trusted the people in those white coats to do their jobs. They didn't. Her little boy died because of negligence. A life that could have been saved, gone, because someone was careless with something precious. Rachel fell apart in a way she had never allowed herself to fall apart before. She needed her husband. She needed someone, anyone, to hold her together. But Daniel wasn't there. His family wasn't there. Instead, they gave her something else entirely. Daniel's mother pointed. "This happened because you went into this marriage without your father's blessing. This is what you brought on yourself." They took her grief, the rawest, most devastating grief a mother can carry, and they turned it into a verdict. And the cruelest part, Rachel started to believe them. The guilt crept in like cold water. Maybe they were right. Maybe if she had tried harder to get her father's blessing, maybe her son would still be alive. That thought lived in her chest like a stone. And 4 months after she buried her son, she buried her grandmother too. The last person in the world who had ever loved her without conditions. Gone. Rachel sat in that house one night, in the silence. No son, no grandmother, no husband, not really. just the sound of a family that had decided she was the problem. And she thought, I gave this everything I had. I wanted this to last forever. I said it would last forever. And it collapsed in 3 years. She felt like a failure. She still feels like a failure, even now. Even after everything they put her through. That guilt doesn't leave easily. But one thing became clear to her that night. Staying would kill her. Not all at once, but slowly, the way a fire dies when it has nothing left to burn. So Rachel did the hardest thing she had ever done. She left. She lost her son. She lost her grandmother. She lost the marriage she had given everything to save. And the people who were supposed to love her blamed her for all of it. If you had been in her shoes, would you have stayed and fought? Or would you have walked out that door too? Because what happens next, nobody saw coming.
She left, quietly, without a scene. She packed what was hers and she walked out the door with the kind of calm that only comes when a person has finally made a decision they can't take back. The first months were brutal, not because she missed Daniel, but because leaving doesn't automatically set you free. It just means you are now alone with everything you are trying to escape. The guilt followed her. The voice that said, you failed. You should have done more. You promised it would last forever. And underneath all of that guilt, an older question, a deeper one. One she had been carrying since before she could even name it. Why didn't my father want me? That question had been living inside her for her entire life. And after the marriage fell apart, after his family told her the collapse was her fault for not having a father's blessing, that question became unbearable. So she went looking for him, not out of love, not to beg, but because she needed an answer. She needed to look that man in the eyes and ask, why? Why did you never want me? Was it only because I was a girl? Was being born a daughter really enough reason to pretend I didn't exist? She flew to find him. Once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6 times. 6 times she got on a plane. 6 times she showed up. She hired investigators. She traced him through his family, through his connections. She found out he was an elder in his church, a man of standing, a man of God in the eyes of his community. On one visit, she went to his church on a service day. She sat outside and waited. The moment he heard she was there, he ordered them to lock up the church. And he left. He fled from his own daughter. 6 times she came. 6 times he refused to see her. 6 times she flew home with no answer, just the same silence she had been given since the day she was born. She stopped going, not because she stopped hurting, but because she finally understood some people are not capable of giving you what you need, and chasing them only teaches your heart to keep breaking. She started rebuilding, slowly, painfully, a small place of her own, silence that felt safe instead of empty, sleep that actually came. She was still fragile, but she was standing, and the peace she had found, however small, was the most precious thing she had ever owned. And then the calls started. Every day, sometimes twice a day. Caller, urgent. Your father wants to see you. He's had a stroke. He's asking for you. Rachel listened, said nothing, hung up. The calls kept coming. And one afternoon, there was a knock at her door. She opened it. Her uncle, her father's brother, The same man who had stood in her father's place at her wedding. Uncle, low, serious. I've been looking for you everywhere. Rachel, quiet, guarded. Uncle, what are you doing here? Pause. It's your father. He's had a stroke. He wants to see you. He's asking for you by name. Long silence. Rachel doesn't move. Something moved across her face. Not anger, not sadness. Something older than both. Rachel, flat. He has 2 sons. Beat. Rachel, quiet, deliberate. 2 sons, and he is calling for me. She exhales slowly. Rachel, voice beginning to break. I flew 6 times to find that man. Rachel, steady. 6 times. I hired people to help me reach him. I went to his church. I sat outside and waited. Rachel, controlled. The moment he heard I was there, he locked the doors and walked away from his own daughter. Beat. Her voice goes very quiet. Rachel, raw, honest. All my life, I wanted to know why. Was it because I was a girl? Was being born a daughter really enough reason to pretend I didn't exist? I had no mother. I needed him. And he chose every single time to walk away. Silence. The uncle had no answer because there wasn't one that would be enough. Rachel stood there for a long time. She thought about the little girl who used to wonder what her father's voice sounded like. She thought about her son, gone because of someone else's negligence, while her husband looked the other way. She lost her grandmother, lost her marriage, lost her answer. She thought about 6 plane journeys that ended in silence. And then, slowly, something in her settled. She realized she no longer needed the answer. Not because she had stopped hurting, but because she had finally stopped letting the question define her. She thought about the peace she had almost destroyed herself to find. The sleep, the stillness, the version of herself still learning to stand. Going back to that door, the one he had closed on her 6 times, would not heal her. It would reopen every wound that had finally begun to close. Some people find healing in forgiveness visits. For Rachel, this was not that. For Rachel, peace lived on the other side of letting go. She looks at her uncle. Her voice is calm, final. Rachel quiet. Tell him I hope he finds peace. She steps back. Rachel soft, setting. I already found mine. She closes the door. She stood with her back against it, eyes closed, breathing. Not crying, not angry, just still. The kind of still that comes after a very long storm. The kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. It just settles, quietly, completely. Like finally, after everything, she had chosen the right person. Herself. Rejected at birth because she was a girl. Left at 3 months old. Lost her son to negligence while her husband looked the other way. Lost her grandmother. Lost her marriage. Lost her answer. And when the father who rejected her, who has 2 sons, finally called her name after a stroke, she chose peace. She chose not to reopen what had finally begun to heal. He has 2 sons, but he called for her. After everything he put her through, does he deserve her forgiveness? Or did Rachel make the right choice? Drop your answer below and share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you've ever been through something like this, your story deserves to be heard too. There's an email in the description. Reach out. You'll remain completely anonymous because some stories were never meant to stay silent. If this story touched you, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more real life stories.